Gerald Young singles, and then the Dodgers don't get to relax again for 3 hours. That's the game. Not the whole box score, and not the whole night. Kevin Bass is going to drive in 4 runs. Nolan Ryan's going to strike out 9 batters at the age of 40 because, well, he's built different. And the Dodgers are going to win 8-1 at Dodger Stadium. The score is going to make it look like it was fairly clean, but the feeling of the game starts with Gerald Young. He reaches first, and first base immediately becomes temporary housing. He steals third in the first, second in the fourth. He reaches on an error in the sixth, then steals second and third before the Dodgers can even turn that mistake into something manageable. 4 hits, 4 steals, 2 runs, no RBI. That's a weird-looking line if you're scanning a box score for Thunder. No homer, no 4 RBI night, no dramatic 9th inning swing, but that's why this one works. Gerald Young doesn't finish the inning. He changes the inning's operating conditions. Every time he gets on base, the Dodgers have to start doing extra work. The pitcher has to keep checking him. The catcher has to think about him. The infield's got to shade over, and the dugout has to account for him. The inning starts to move at his speed. And once the inning starts moving at Gerald Young's speed, Los Angeles, we have a problem. Welcome back to Sports Lab 100. This is Astro 41, Gerald Young. September 14th, 1987, Astros at Dodgers from Dodger Stadium. And I'm documenting 1 game per player until I reach 100. Today's idea is simple. Sometimes a player's value isn't what he finishes, it's what he starts. Gerald Young's game here is a perfect little museum piece for that. He doesn't own the loudest line. He doesn't have the most traditional run-producing night. And he's not the Hall of Famer on the mound or the switch-hitting outfielder driving in half the runs. But it gives the game its shape. The Astros win because a lot of things go right. Ryan bends without breaking. Bass turns traffic into damage. Bill Doran and Glenn Davis help build innings. The Dodgers make mistakes, and Houston punishes them. But Young's the irritant. He's the first leak. He's the guy who turns a single into a warning and an error into a runner 90 feet from home. That's the episode. This is Houston after the 1986 fever has broken. The Astros had won the National League West the year before. They pushed the Mets into that famous NLCS, and for a few days there, Houston looked like it might knock the eventual champion right out of October. That didn't happen. The Mets survived and the Astros went home. And then 1987 showed up with the coldest truth in sports. Nobody lets you live inside last year. No one gives you a division crown because you almost made the right kind of history. By the middle of September, the Astros aren't chasing the division anymore. They're around 500, then slipping under it, and the defending NL West champions are becoming something else in real time. You could still see the old shape. Nolan Ryan, Bill Doran, Glenn Davis, Billy Hatcher, Kevin Bass. That's not a dead roster. That's a real baseball team. But you can also see the next house being framed. Ken Caminiti's around. Craig Biggio's been drafted. Gerald Young isn't a prospect in theory anymore. He's in the lineup, leading off. And he's making the other team deal with him. So the Astros clubhouse temperature isn't champagne, but it's not panic either. It's in the more interesting middle. It's a team realizing the 1986 story is over, while the next version is starting to appear in patches. Now across the field, the Dodgers are in their own strange middle part. It's Tommy Lasorda's club, so the uniform still carries weight, even when the roster's not quite right. The Dodgers still have Pedro Guerrero, Steve Sachs, Mike Scotia, Mike Marshall, and John Shelby. They still have Dodger Stadium, and they have that institutional Dodgers confidence, the sense the rest of baseball is supposed to behave like background scenery. 1987 isn't the Dodgers' year. It's the year before the year everyone remembers. In 1988, the Dodgers became one of the great underdog champion stories in modern baseball history. Kirk Gibson, Orel Hershiser, the fist pump, that impossible October. That team had its own music. This isn't that team yet. This is the year before the trailer starts. And on this Monday night, they're starting Sean Hilligus, a young right-hander who'd been drafted 4th overall by LA in 1984. He's 23, talented, and trying to learn how to breathe right through major league innings. That matters because Gerald Young is exactly the wrong kind of leadoff hitter for a young pitcher trying to breathe. Young doesn't just ask, "Can you get me out?" He asks, "Can you get me out? And if you don't, can you keep the whole inning from speeding up?" And on this night, the answer is no. But before we get into the game itself, the league around it is worth a minute because September 14th, 1987, not a dead baseball day. The national headline isn't Gerald Young stealing 4 bases in LA. It's Toronto hitting 10 home runs against Baltimore in an 18-3 win. 10 home runs, one team, one night. Fair enough, that gets the newspaper. You hit 10 homers, you get the room. I'm not going to sit here and pretend a 4-steal game should shove that off the front page, but the contrast helps us. Because while Toronto's blasting baseballs into orbit, Gerald Young's playing the opposite kind of game. No fireworks, no souvenirs, just traffic, stress, and leadoff hitter who keeps making the Dodgers take notice of him. That's also 1987 baseball. The season has power everywhere. Andre Dawson's on his way to win the National League MVP for a last-place Cubs team. Mark McGwire's hitting 49 home runs as a rookie in Oakland. The ball seems lively enough that you'd want to check. And over here, Gerald Young is reminding everybody, speed can still take over a game without leaving the yard. In the National League West, Astros-Dodgers still carry some divisional memory. These teams have seen too much for it to be random. The Dodgers had been the standard for years. Houston spent a lot of the early and mid-'80s trying to punch through that wall. In 1980, they did it, and in 1986, they did it once more. By September of 87, though, neither team's the main event anymore. The Giants are moving towards the division title under Roger Craig, with Will Clark and Kevin Mitchell helping make San Francisco look like the team with teeth. But Houston and Los Angeles still feel connected. The Dodgers are never just another opponent in the old NL West. They're the franchise you measure yourself against, even when they're down. There's also a few crossovers in this game. Phil Garner starts at third base for the Dodgers, which looks wrong to you if your baseball brain has him filed as an Astro, and it should look wrong. Garner had been part of 1986 Houston's division winner. He was grit, dirt under the nails, mustache baseball. By September 1987, he's wearing Dodger blue. Boo that man. Danny Heap is also on the Los Angeles bench, another player with Houston in his baseball bloodstream. So yeah, there's a little weirdness here. The Astros are beating the Dodgers, but they're also running past a few pieces of their own recent past. And the baseball history count is sneaky too. Nolan Ryan, he's the obvious Hall of Famer in uniform. He's the son in the room, even in a Gerald Young episode. 5 days before this game, Ryan recorded his 45th 100 strikeout. 40 years old, still throwing hard, still making the sports timeline look fake. Tommy Lasorda's managing the Dodgers. Yogi Berra is on Houston's coaching staff. That's one of those baseball facts that sound fake until you remember baseball history. It's mostly unbelievable people standing in ordinary places. Doug Harvey's behind the plate. That's another Hall of Fame figure in this frame. So this isn't a marquee game in the standings. But it's not some empty Monday night either. Baseball history, it's everywhere. It's just not all wearing the episode's name. Now let's talk about Gerald Young. Young was born in Tela, Honduras. He became the first Honduran-born player to reach the major leagues. That's not the whole story, but it's an important part of the frame. He was a switch-hitting center fielder, tall and lean, built like the base paths had been designed with him in mind. The Mets drafted him in 1982, then he came to Houston in the Ray Knight trade. That transaction has a funny shape to it. Ray Knight goes to New York and becomes part of Mets history. Gerald Young comes to Houston and gives the Astros one of the fastest players they've ever had. Young debuts in July of 1987, so this game isn't some veteran pulling out an old trick. This is a 22-year-old rookie announcing a very specific kind of future. By September, he's not just hanging around. He's hot. Not polite rookie hot. Not, hey, nice month hot. Actual, uncomfortable, somebody get this man out hot. His September line is ridiculous. .398 with a .451 OBP, a .462 slugging percentage. Not a power profile, but it doesn't need to be. If a player reaches base that often In runs like Gerald Young, the defense isn't defending a hitter anymore. They're defending an event. And Young forces us to talk about a kind of baseball that can get flattened in hindsight. Because we remember the home runs, the strikeouts, and the walk-offs because they package themselves for memories. They have a built-in headline. Speed is something different. It can own a game in pieces. A lead, a break one way or the other, a pitcher stepping off, a catcher rushing the throw, maybe an infielder drifting towards the bag instead of staying exactly where he wants to be. Speed doesn't always produce the clean final image. Sometimes it just makes the other team play a little worse. One decision at a time. That's Gerald Young in this game. Top of the first, no score. Sean Hillig is on the mound. Gerald Young leads off with a single. First pitch of the episode, basically. Billy Hatcher reaches on an error by shortstop Glenn Hoffman, and Young moves to second. The Dodgers already got traffic on the bases, and it's the bad kind of traffic. It's the kind with the fast guy right in front. Then Young steals third. Right away, LA's been taught what kind of night this is going to be. Bill Doran singles him home. Glenn Davis strikes out. But Kevin Bass singles. Hatcher scores. Then Doran moves up. Denny Walling walks. Craig Reynolds hits a sacrifice fly. It's 3-0 Astros before the Dodgers have even found the door. That inning gives you the whole problem in miniature. Houston doesn't need a 3-run homer. They get a leadoff single, an error, a steal, a Doran single, a Bass single, a walk, and a sacrifice fly. It's not elegant. It's pressure baseball. One thing after another. Not one explosion, just a series of assignments the Dodgers are failing to complete. Young is the first assignment. Then Los Angeles gets its chance back in the bottom of the first. Steve Sack singles, John Shelby singles, Pedro Guerrero walks. Bases loaded, nobody out. Nolan Ryan's on the mound. This is where the game can become something else. The Astros have a 3-0 lead, but it's inning number 1 at Dodger Stadium. One swing makes it a different night. A double clears the bases, and suddenly we're not talking about Gerald Young giving the game its shape. We're talking about Nolan Ryan having to survive his own traffic. Ryan gets Mike Marshall to pop out, Ralph Bryant strikes out looking, and Mike Scioscia flies out. No runs. That's the biggest defensive inning of the game for Houston, and it happens immediately. The Astros score 3, the Dodgers load the bases with nobody out, and Ryan refuses to let the game change genre. The next few innings get quieter, but Young doesn't disappear. In the fourth, with 2 outs, he singles again. Then he steals second. Hatcher makes the final out so the steal doesn't become a run. But that almost proves the point better. Young doesn't need to pay off every time for the Dodgers to feel him. He reaches, and first base becomes unstable. That's a rhythm. In the fifth, Houston turns the game from comfortable to ugly. Doran doubles, Glenn Davis singles him in, Kevin Bass homers. Now it's 6-0 and Hilligus is done after facing 3 batters in the inning. Bass deserves a nod here. He goes 4 for 5 with a homer and 4 RBI. That's a serious night. On the different Astro 100 card, that might be the whole episode. He does the loud, run-producing work, turns base runners into scores. But that's why the player choice matters. Bass is the damage. Young is the condition that keeps creating damage opportunities. That's a different kind of starring role. The Dodgers do nothing in the fifth. Ryan keeps working through that familiar Ryan tension where he can allow base runners and still feel impossible. He's not spotless in this game. He allows 8 hits and 2 walks. But he strikes out 9, strands traffic, and gives up just 1 run. That's the Nolan Ryan contradiction. He can be a little wild, a little inefficient, maybe even hittable for a second, and still terrifying when we get to the 6th. This is the Gerald Young inning, even though he doesn't get a hit. Bill Kruger's pitching for LA. Young reaches on an error by Phil Garner. That's already a problem for LA. Give Gerald Young first base for free. You haven't avoided anything. You just moved the stress from the batter's box to the base path. Hatcher strikes out, and Young steals second. Then Young steals third. That's the 3rd and 4th steal of the night. He reaches on an error. Within 1 out, he moves himself to third base without the ball being put into play. That's the episode. One player makes a defensive mistake and personally upgrades it into a runner 90 feet from home. The Dodgers made their original mistake. Young makes it expensive. Jim Pankovitz doubles him in. Davis reaches on another Garner error. Bass doubles in Pankovitz. Now it's 8-0. The Dodgers commit 3 errors in the game, and Garner has 2 of them. That's a mean little detail given the Houston connection. Former Astro, now a Dodger, helping Houston build the lead. Baseball has no manners. Los Angeles finally scores in the 7th. Garner singles, Danny Heap flies out, Sack singles, Mike Devereaux strikes out, then Franklin Stubbs singles in Garner. And that's the only Dodger run. Ryan leaves with 2 on and 2 out. Larry Anderson comes in and gets Jose Gonzalez to force Stubbs at third. Threat over. From there, the game exhales. Anderson handles the 8th. Juan Augusto tosses a clean 9th. Astros win 8-1. Gerald Young's final line: 6 at-bats, 2 runs, 4 hits, 4 stolen bases, no RBI. And that no RBI part matters, because if you only scan the box score for who drove in the runs, you end up with Kevin Bass. And you're not wrong. Bass had a really big night. 4 hits, 4 RBI, and a home run. That matters, but the box score isn't a shortcut. It's a map. You can follow the map. Young's everywhere. He leads off the first with a single, scores the first run, singles and steals second in the 4th. He reaches it in the 6th, steals 2 bases, then singles again in the 7th, singles again in the 9th. His whole night is a reminder that the most annoying player in baseball is not always the best player. Sometimes he's the one who refuses to let the game sit still. In the standings, this game didn't mean a ton to the Astros. Let's be honest, they were 71-72 after this win. They weren't saving their season or launching a last-minute miracle. The 87 Astros finished 76-86, third in the National League West, 14 games behind the Giants. So yeah, they went 4-14 the rest of the way. But meaning isn't always about standings. Sometimes meaning is evidence. This game is evidence that Gerald Young is not just a September body. He's not just a speed guy getting a look because the season is drifting away. He's a real weapon in a very specific form. It's also evidence of what Houston wanted to be under Hal Lanier. Aggressive, irritating, built on pitching, movement, and pressure. Lanier came out of that Whitey Herzog ecosystem. And you can see the concept here. Get on, run, force the other team to execute. Let your pitchers protect the damage. On this night, the idea looks perfect. Over 162 games, the roster doesn't hold. And that's baseball. A style can be right, and a season can still go wrong. For the Dodgers, this game has a different meaning in hindsight. On the night itself, it's just an ugly loss in an ugly year. They load the bases with nobody out in the first, score nothing. They make 3 errors. They let Gerald Young turn Dodger Stadium into a track meet. But a year later, they're the World Series champions. That's one of the funny things about watching old games from the future. If you only look at this box score, you'd say, yeah, this organization's 1 year away from one of the great October runs of all time. What you'd say is, this team needs to stop giving Gerald Young free real estate. Both things are true. So how would this game create a new baseball fan? Not with power, or a walk-off, or a bench-clearing fight, or some giant swing. This game creates a fan by showing how many smaller games are happening inside the larger one. There's Hillegas trying to survive the lineup. There's Ryan trying to escape traffic. There's Kruger trying to clean up a game that's already tilting the wrong way. There's Mike Scioscia knowing Young wants to run, and Young knowing Scioscia knows, and everybody in the building knowing it too. Then Young goes anyway. That's baseball. Not just the pitch, not just the swing. It's the argument before the pitch, the threat after the single. It's the pitcher holding the ball an extra beat because the runner's in his head. So some fans fall in love because of the violence of the swing. The crowd stands, somebody hits it 440 feet, and the game can explain itself. There, that's a good way in. But some fans fall in love with motion. Taking a lead, a break, throw, slide, dirt. Crowd noise changing because everybody knows the steal's coming, and nobody knows if the defense can stop it. Gerald Young's for that kind of fan. He's the part of baseball that doesn't ask permission before moving. The box score gives us the testimony. Young, 4 singles, 4 stolen bases, 2 runs. Ryan, 6 2/3, 9 strikeouts, 1 run. Bass, 4 hits, a homer, 4 RBI. The Dodgers, 3 errors, 9 lobsters, and a long night of trying to finish assignments that Gerald Young kept changing. After this game, the Dodgers don't go anywhere special as a team. They lose the next day to the Dodgers, continue the late season fade, and finish 10 games under 500. The division belongs to San Francisco, and Houston's 1986 glow-up is officially over. But Gerald Young's rookie season remains a bright, shiny object. He finishes 1987 hitting .321 with a .380 OBP, 26 stolen bases in just 71 games. He finishes 5th in the National League Rookie of the Year voting despite playing less than half a season. That's a real arrival. Then, 1988 becomes the full Gerald Young experience. He steals 65 bases. It's the kind of number that makes a franchise stop and stare. He finishes 2nd in the National League in steals. He's not quite a complete offensive player in the power sense. The caught stealings are part of the package too, and that's fair. Speed can create pressure. Speed can also run you into outs if the math gets away from you. Ask Altuve. But the weapon's obvious. If Gerald Young reaches, the inning changes. By 1989, Young's bat slips, but the defense gives you a strange statistical gem. 412 putouts, 1 error, and 15 outfield assists. That's a center fielder covering ground and throwing enough to make runners think twice. After that, his career gets harder. Injuries, trips from Houston to the minors and back, a stint with the Rockies, and a final major league stop with the Cardinals in 1994. His big league career ends with a .246 average, 3 home runs, 113 RBI, and 155 stolen bases. That's not a Hall of Fame career. It's not even close. But Astro 100 can't be only about the obvious statues. Can't be only Bagwell and Biggio and Altuve and Ryan and the postseason names that everybody already knows about. If I tell a story about only the players who became permanent franchise monuments, we'll miss the whole texture. We'll miss the guys who weren't forever, but were absolutely part of something for a while. Gerald Young was something. He's the first Honduran-born major leaguer. He was a rookie, hitting nearly .400 for the month. He was a leadoff hitter with enough speed to turn a normal single into a defensive meeting, and a franchise stolen base record waiting to happen. On September 14th, 1987, he was the player who made the whole game move differently. That's the lesson here. A player doesn't have to be the final sentence to be the subject. Sometimes he's the comma that keeps the inning going. Sometimes he's the runner who reaches first and makes everybody else in the building start calculating. Astro 41 is Gerald Young because this game catches him in full. Not his whole career, not the whole promise or the whole disappointment. Just the baseball player as he existed on September 14th, 1987. He's fast, disruptive, alive, exhausting to deal with. Next time on Sports Lab 100, we ship back to the Warriors for Warriors 17. Clyde Lee, February 6, 1968. Different sport, different rhythm, same basic question. What does one game tell us about a player when we stop treating the box score like a shortcut, start treating it like a map? Gerald Young gave us 4 hits, 4 steals, and a reminder that speed doesn't need permission. That's Astro 41. Thanks for watching.